when we do Pesach every year in spring, this is the time that this was happening. The first month happens, the new year happens in the spring. Okay? On God's calendar. Which fits completely with everything that's happening here because it's a time of new beginnings. So they're a fresh people with a fresh identity and with this covenant that God's about to give them. So it says, 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day there shall be a feast unto Yahweh. Unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days, and no leavened bread shall be seen among you, nor shall leaven be seen among you in all your quarters. And you shall tell your son in that day, this is done because of what Yahweh did for me when I came up from Egypt. Just passing on that testimony. It's a testimony is what they're passing down. It's the most beautiful thing. There's the other theme of testimony. It all boils down, when you get to Revelation, it says the patience of the saints. It talks about those who keep his commandments and have the testimony of Yeshua. So the testimony of Yeshua is what? Keeping his commandments. It also says the spirit of prophecy. And so it says, you shall keep it as an ordinance in this season from year to year. Read that again. You shall therefore keep this ordinance in its season from year to year. And it shall be, when Yahweh brings you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to you and your fathers and gives it to you, that you shall set apart to Yahweh all that open the womb. That is every firstborn that comes out from an animal which you have, to the males shall be Yahweh's. But every firstborn of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb. And if you will not redeem it, then you shall break its neck. And all the firstborn of man among your sons you shall redeem. So shall it be when your son asks you in that time, saying, what is this? You shall say to him, by the strength of hand Yahweh has brought us out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. And it came to pass when Pharaoh was stubborn, not letting us go, that Yahweh killed all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beast. Therefore I sacrifice to the Lord all males that open the womb, but all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. And it shall be a sign on your hand and as frontlets between your eyes. For by strength of hand Yahweh brought us out from Egypt. So he gives the commandment of redemption. Okay, redemption of the firstborn, in Hebrew pidyon haben. Redemption of the firstborn is this concept that, what do you mean by redeem? We sing that song, I am redeemed. What does it mean to be redeemed? When you're bought back from something. In its purest sense. I'm not talking about like theologically redeemed. I'm just talking about normal redeem. When you have redemption codes, when you redeem something is when you buy something back or when you take something back.
And rescue it from, basically from a place where it's going to no longer be, maybe.
That's more of a theological, the reason I say that is because redeem doesn't necessarily imply that thing was in a bad state previously, but it can, So redeem is just, again, in a simple sense, you just get something back, So it says, God says that the firstborn belonged to him. What did that look like in a practical sense back in those days? Is that when your firstborn was born, he belonged to the Lord. Like, that was not your child. You didn't pass on your inheritance to that child. That child belonged to the Lord. And in that case, it would have been the priesthood. Okay? A priesthood who is also considered the Lord's portion. And that child, if you didn't redeem it, would live out his life as a priest to the Lord. Every firstborn had that right. Every firstborn had the inheritance of the Lord's portion. It's interesting because even though you didn't receive your father's inheritance, it was like you were adopted immediately by the Lord. And you received his portion, which was what? 10% of all Israel. Right? So that firstborn child was due that unless his parents redeemed him and bought him back. Then that firstborn would receive the inheritance, legally receive the inheritance of the father, and no longer be the Lord's portion, right? So, to continue, it says, where was I at? It says, then it came to pass when Pharaoh had let the people go, that God did not lead them by way of the land of the Philistines, although that way was near. Do we have a map of Israel over there? I know I got one from one time. I want to kind of see if I had the Red Sea in it, or I can show you the way of the Philistines. Who knows? Where's the way of the Philistines now? Gaza. Gaza. No. There's like one at the very top, but it's too small. That could work. No, it's kind of covered. I'm sorry. It's okay. But the way of the Philistines would have been, there we go. So you can't see Egypt. This is better, though. You can't see, Egypt is down here. You've got the Red Sea somewhere in here. And then you've got Saudi Arabia right here. So you've got what's called the Sinai Peninsula in the middle. And the Sinai Peninsula is a triangle. You guys following me? Or do I look like a mad scientist? Sinai Peninsula is a triangle here. And you've got the Red Sea on either side of the Sinai Peninsula. And then you've got Egypt here. Now you can get up. Egypt shares a border with, there you go. There you go. See, I wasn't too wrong. You have this triangle here. Egypt, this was Goshen at the time. Okay? Somewhere on this side. Or somewhere up in here. Up north. Yeah. This is a little bit deserty, isn't
Way
it?
up towards the mouth, right there. That's it. That's right.
Yeah, there you go.
Right there.
So you get over here. This is the way of the Philistines. So this is the land of Israel. It's like, okay, well, let's just go around up here in the way of the Philistines. Boom. Nope. It says he doesn't take them that way. Most scholars have now agreed that this was the way he took them. Boom. And they came around and crossed over the Jordan into the promised land from that side. So they took the scenic route. Yeah. They got into all these guys over here. So, but this is what it says. It says, God did not lead them by way of the land of the Philistines, although it was near. For God said, lest perhaps the people change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt. In other words, it would have been quicker, but they would have immediately been at war with the Philistines on their way up. Maybe God's taking the scenic route with us now. It's like, we want to go through Gaza? Maybe he's taking us through the way of the Philistines now. So it says, he did not lest perhaps they change their mind when they see war and return to Egypt. So God led the people around by the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea. And the children of Israel went up in orderly ranks out of the land of Egypt. And Moshe took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had placed the children of Israel under solemn oath, saying, God will surely visit you. I love it. He knew God's going to come get you. And when he does, it wasn't like, hey, if he does. When God comes to visit you, take my bones out of here. So they took their journey from, there's a connection there with the prophecy of the bones of the whole house of Israel. There's something there. Anyways, so they took their journey from Sukkot and camped in Etham at the edge of the wilderness. And Yahweh went before them. Love this. This is the first time it talks about this. It says, Yahweh went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so as to go by day and by night. That crazy, a pillar of fire. You didn't have street lights. You still don't have street lights in the wilderness of Egypt. Do you imagine just a glowing pillar of fire that is illuminating the wilderness that you're walking through for hundreds of thousands of people? It was their light. It's beautiful. Yes, yeah. Yeah, this is really bright.
I grew up north, so I got a chance to see northern lights.
Ah.
But now it's kind of like you take the northern light and you put it amongst you.
Yeah. Uh-huh. It
Big
was
shining
just
one. that's
unheard
flaming.
of.
Yeah.
Unheard of. Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah. If you watch those Netflix series, that guy with the crazy hair. Yeah. So yeah, it's just beautiful, like this idea of like God Himself leading, and not just protecting them with this fire, but it was to illuminate the path so that they could walk in the night in this wilderness. He did not take away the pillar of cloud by day or the pillar of fire by night from the people of Israel. So I want to close with this. I want to submit something to you about the Passover. This is something that I personally see when I look at the Passover, that when God came to the land of Egypt to smite the Egyptians, He went through every house. And He says the doorposts with the blood of the lamb He passed over. And so what does this moment in history have to do with Yeshua's sacrifice? And how are the things linked? You know, we're talking about the identity of the church maybe, and then the identity of Israel. No. These are two things that are intrinsically woven together. And so what is it that connects those two? I want to give you an example, or not an example, but ask you a question, I guess. Do you know what thing symbolizes blood? Almost ubiquitously throughout different cultures. But what is it that people drink? Sometimes they drink actual blood. But what is it that they drink that represents blood? Wine. We know this even in modern Christian culture today, because you drink the wine represents the blood. But this isn't something Christian. This is something that goes back in time. Okay? This is something that was understood in Jewish cultures and in many other cultures. Why? Because wine looks like blood. Maybe not if you're drinking Welch's, you know. But like red wine, when pressed, it looked like blood. And fresh wine, if you've ever seen it, is even murkier than wine that's been sitting there, and it really looks like blood. And so that was something that's similar. So what does Yeshua say about the cup? He says that that's His blood, isn't it? But it was something that the Jews were doing before they recognized that that was the blood of Yeshua. Why? Because that cup represents